Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor
and his cousin
and their friend
gives you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides. For the latest updates and information, you can find me on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can find my cousin Jared on Twitter at Cousin Jared, and my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. This college football episode wraps up week 10 of the 2022 season. If you haven't seen them yet, check out episodes 1 and 2. We're going to cover everything else here in this one. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for a primer and explanation of what's going around on these parts. Otherwise, the goals for this episode are share key information about these games, give you a few things to think on, and explain why certain plays are being made. We never recommend blindly tailing or fading any pick, but rather hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure you're fully on board with us or against us before investing your hard-earned money. We will make a pick on every game, but you should take what you like and leave the rest. Remember, there are no locks in gambling, so we will provide our loves, likes, and leans in this A, B, and C grade picks to indicate our confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. However, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as we'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every week, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Guys, I feel like this episode might get crazy. We've got cousin Jared, your daughter's at home, and so we'll have to, hopefully she's not screaming in the background. Jake, I don't know if he's going to make it through the Tennessee segment.
I might die.
Yeah, I feel like this could be a fun episode, people. So buckle up. Who knows what's going to happen? But before we get to that, some reminders, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you are yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free, and if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. College basketball coming soon. So there's
very soon.
There's that happening.
So happy.
Jake's in his element. We've also got that Patreon if you're looking for some extra benefits. Plays of the day, got a favorite of the day, a dog of the day, and a total of the day up there. Also, early access to projected spreads, access to our Discord chat. That's the quickest and easiest way to get your questions answered. Ad-free shows, all sorts of goodies over there. Check out that link also in the description as well. But we'll get right to it here. All lines courtesy of Bet Online. Sign up link in the show description. And current as of the time of this recording on late Wednesday afternoon, all Saturday games. And guys, I feel like we ought to pour one out for this one. What could have been.
What should have been.
What should have been North Carolina and Virginia. What should have been a game that we should have been debating. Is this game going to get to 100? And it's at the total 60.5. And honestly, I have no idea what to make of that because Virginia's become a defensive team. And it's sad. It's really sad. North Carolina, a 7.5 point favorite. North Carolina looking pretty impressive, up to 37th in my rankings. Virginia is at 79th. Sideline says this should be a 10-point spread. Cousin Jared, I really want to make a play on this total, but I have no feel for it whatsoever. It just feels like North Carolina's going to win this one pretty big, though, right?
Yeah. So first of all, I say let's give a B grade to the lay in the 7.5. Just if you look at Virginia this season, they scored 34 points against Richmond, and they scored 20 points in a game at Syracuse. And after that, their point totals this season have been 3, 16, 17, 17, 16, and 12 in quadruple overtime last week. This offense is just not even as bad as North Carolina's defense is. They have been playing.
Is it North Carolina going to be what gets them out of this funk?
Nope. They are way too far gone. Yeah, they're way too far gone. Even North Carolina's defense has been playing below average recently, which is an improvement. Which is a big improvement for them. So I say 7.5, make it a B grade personally, and this is just me. I think I would make this an A grade at 7.
I was gonna say I think 7 too. That push protection on it lands on 7's worth it. So I think A grade if it gets to 7, B grade at 7.5.
Yeah, I just don't think that Virginia's gonna be able to keep up.
And I was thinking the same thing, and I think the perfect analog is the Virginia Tech game where we thought Virginia Tech could keep up because North Carolina's defense would be so bad, and that's not how that game played out at all. So I kind of see a repeat of that here. We learned our lesson from that one, which is North Carolina's defense is bad, but these bad Virginia offenses just still so bad it doesn't really matter. Virginia's defense has been respectable, surprisingly, but North Carolina is going to score at will. And I just think it's a complete pass in the total. I have zero idea where I would play it.
I would lean under.
I have no words for that. I'm not touching the under, but we'll go B grade on North Carolina minus 7.5. And if it gets to 7, we will upgrade that to an A grade and add that third unit there. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm taking North Carolina here. It opened up at like 9-ish, 9.5, came crashing down. That confused me. I don't know what people saw in Virginia's whatever you want to call that was last week that made them think they could stay with North Carolina.
I would say it was a football game, but I'm not 100% sure that's accurate.
I'm not sure I would call it that. That was embarrassing for everybody that had to watch. I think North Carolina that stands a good chance to hit this over themselves. I'm going to play the over too. They like May is. I mean, if May was on a different team, I think we'd be talking about like Heisman type favorites, the kind of numbers he's putting up. So I don't know what year he is, so maybe that's a look ahead for next year because if they keep most of this team around, maybe they're because of the way they're playing at the end of the year, the defense steps up at all. They've got a really solid team, but I think Virginia will do maybe one touchdown this time, maybe, and I think that's all we'll need to get to the 60 because I think North Carolina is just going to have a field day.
To your point about Drake May, I saw a graphic today, and it was basically like an axis of what percentage of a person's throws go go for big plays, and what percentage of the throws are like high risk and risk having a turnover. And Drake May was like by far and away he took a ton of deep shots, and his turnover or his throws that resulted in risky throws was very low. But see, I know that this was an accurate graphic because Spencer Rattler had the highest risky throw percentage, and Will Levis was also like the worst quarterback on the graphic as far as no big plays and lots of turnover risk. So I know that this was an accurate graphic. So yes, Drake May is the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Folks, we're less than 7 minutes into the show, and I feel like we are coming at you hard. There's just a lot happening to unfold here. So Jake, you've got the laying the 7.5 with North Carolina. You're taking over 60.5. I was traveling back from Houston last week during the early slot of the game, so I did not see any of that Miami-Virginia game. Praise the Lord. I just have to assume they were playing in a monsoon, and I don't really want to hear if that's not true because that's the only way that is acceptable. And so we're just going to assume that and move on. We all like North Carolina here to start us off. Also at noon Eastern, Maryland at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 5-point favorite in this one. Sideline says it should be 2.4. We are assuming Talia is back.
Yes.
I
just referred to it.
I struggle with that one. I've got both these teams ranked in the upper 20s. I think they're both pretty solid, especially if Maryland is fully healthy. Maryland's been kind of a surprise in that we thought they'd be decent, but they're, I think, a little better than we thought coming in. Wisconsin a little bit worse than we thought coming in, which puts them fairly even. I can't really explain why Wisconsin's a 5-point favorite in this one. A total is 50. Obviously, Wisconsin wants to play this game in the 20s, and Maryland wants to play this game in the 70s. We'll definitely be interested to see who has their way in this one. But I love taking the 5 here with Maryland. It's a 7% edge according to Sideline. Cousin Jared, what do you have?
I agree. I just don't think that Wisconsin is going to be able to put up enough points. Or let me back off that a little bit. I think over the range of outcomes, I don't think that even if Wisconsin wins this game, I don't think that know how many times they win by more than 5 points. So I agree. Let's give a B grade to 5 points for Maryland. I think I would need a full touchdown on the road to make this an A grade for me personally.
Okay, Jake.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot. I like Maryland here with getting the points. I mean, I know it's on the road. I wish it was a touchdown, but I'm going to take the 5 because I don't know that, well, like Jared was saying, Wisconsin's got the offense to win this by more than a touchdown or even by a touchdown.
Let the record state that Sideline gives this an A grade. So if Maryland wins this outright, then
okay, hold on. Let's hold off on the third unit then. Like if you could talk me into like if it gets to 6, let's put it there. Or I don't know, maybe like see what the money line does.
Or I was going to say maybe put that third unit on the money line. I think Maryland might win this game outright. I'm just not that impressed with Wisconsin.
No, and this is the team that lost to Michigan State, I think 3 weeks ago. I think they had a bye week in there. So Wisconsin's not very good.
Yeah, I think that's a solid play, actually, putting 2 units on the +5 and then 1 unit on the money line. Can I talk you into that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. That's what we'll do. We'll put 2 units on Maryland +5. We'll put a third unit on the money line, taking a shot, kind of like we did with Ball State on Tuesday night in action. That worked beautifully. Like we did with UCF on Friday, or ECU last Friday. That worked beautifully. So we'll see if we can't try that one again. And then Jake, you are also on Maryland +5.
Yep.
Anybody want to take a stab at the total of 50 on this one?
Nope. I mean, I think if Maryland's going to win it outright, it gets over 50, but they'll drag Wisconsin along.
But you're not playing it.
To play it.
Yeah, I feel very much like the first game. This one, the same thing. It's like these two teams are kind of trying to play very different games. Again, sadly for Virginia, so it's harder to assess where this one could go. If Wisconsin somehow only scores like 13 points, I'd be like, yeah, that's Wisconsin, But Maryland, Wisconsin's defense is solid, but the way Maryland can score, if they put up 40 themselves, I'd be like, sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen, I think, in this game. That wouldn't surprise me. But I think Maryland's not getting enough respect here. I think this is a lot of respect from past Wisconsin teams that I just don't see it this year, personally. Also at noon Eastern, Western Kentucky at Charlotte. Western Kentucky is a 16-point favorite. Charlotte, extremely variable team. Not really sure what to think of them. They fired their coach, I guess, before last week, and then they played better.
Yep.
There's a lot to be made, right, of the whole interim coach bump. I think some of that has to do with a team that's just underperforming and now has a little bit of weight lifted off their shoulders. Whatever goes out and just plays a little bit freer. How much of that's real, how much of that's a new coach coming and doing something else is really hard to say. Charlotte's always been bad, but maybe shouldn't have been as bad as they were looking there for a stretch. Western Kentucky, I feel like, has been relatively disappointing to me. They haven't taken care of business against some of the weaker teams. They haven't looked overly impressive against the better teams. I kind of thought early on in the season, I was thinking they might be better than they are. I'm a little surprised they're 16-point favorites here on the road. Total is 72. Western Kentucky, after a fast start, has been an under team as of late. But the way Charlotte's playing, I mean, under's obviously scary with the number that's high, but it seems like a lot of points. I'd lean under rather than over, whatever that's worth, given that Western Kentucky just doesn't seem to want to play these fast games. And if they're not wanting to play a fast game, I think it's going to make it harder to win by this many points. Sideline says this should be Western Kentucky by 12.5. So we're getting a lot of value here, taking the 16 with Charlotte, crossing 13, 14, and 15, which are all reasonable possibilities. Because Jared, what do you have for us here?
Sure. Be great on Charlotte. It's a lot of points. But I cannot go to an A grade on this just because Charlotte has been so Jekyll and Hyde this season, whether it's losing to William and Mary and then coming out.
How do you lose to two people?
I know, like at the time I said it was like Mary Kate and Ashley. I don't know how that happened. And then they were underdogs to Rice and just completely blew Rice out last week. I have no idea what to make of this team. And so for that reason, I can't get to an A grade, even if Sideline says there's a lot of value there.
I'm with you. What number would you play an under in this situation? Given that Charlotte's playing all wonky, but given what we see with Western Kentucky not wanting to push the pace like we thought they might early this season like they did last year, is there a number that you could get behind and a number that you could get on the under at?
95?
I don't know. I would probably, I don't know, like 77. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I think there's going to be a lot of not very many field goals in this game.
Right.
I think I definitely would lean under. It's a lot of points. To your point, Western Kentucky has been an under team this season.
73. That's 10 touchdowns and a field goal.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
73, I played the under, but that is a good point. Western Kentucky has been an under team for sure.
Yeah. So if it gets to 73, we'll go under because, like you said, I agree. I don't think there'll be a lot of field goals. So at least we have the push protection on 10 touchdowns and a field goal there. Jake, what do you have for us on this one?
Yeah, I'm staying away. Charlotte has it out for me. Every time I pick them, they fail. And, if I were to pick them here, they would just not show up. And then if I pick against them and I'm going Western Kentucky, they'd go back in time, get the 85 Bears defense and shut Western Kentucky out. So I'm just going to avoid picking on this game so they can figure out what they want to do without making it off what I say, because I'm sure they're all listening.
They probably are all listening.
Can we just keep talking about this game so we don't have to go to the next one?
Moving on to the next one, Florida at Texas A&M, noon Eastern. Cousin Jerry, do you maybe have a quarterback?
Yeah, maybe.
But,
okay. Yeah. Yes. I mean, definitely by far the best quarterback play that we've seen all season. I have more concerns about the 3 offensive linemen that are out for the season, and so I still have some other concerns. Yes, I'm very excited about him, but when I'm breaking down the game, I just have some concerns other places on the field for A&M.
Sideline says this should be Texas A&M minus 3.7. The actual spread is 3. I do think there's a little bit of juice attached to the Aggies right now. Total is 56. We've been on these A&M unders. Yeah. In the last 2 weeks, there have been scores in the last 80 seconds or so that have killed both of those unders.
Yeah.
Including the one from 2 weeks ago that was only got over because of not just the last second score, but also a a fumble off of a quarterback's leg and a kick return for a touchdown, and all sorts of weird shenanigans. I'm really curious to hear your take on this, just how you break down this game.
I don't know. Like,
Say something.
This is the first time all season where I don't feel like I have a good feel for what's going to happen in an A&M game. So I would lean towards laying the 3 points with A&M at home. I feel like we've got a decent quarterback now. I think the likelihood, especially compared to Haynes King, likelihood of turnovers is lower. It's amazing how much better your receivers look when they have a good quarterback throwing to them, as opposed to when they have a below average quarterback. But again, my concern here is the offensive line for A&M. I'm worried that either Wegman's going to be under pressure for most of the game, or they might have a hard time opening up some running lanes for A-Chain. So I would lean towards laying the points. I would also lean towards the under, again, because of my concerns about the A&M offensive line. But I don't feel great about that. I think we're going to learn a lot about A&M this weekend.
All right, I'm going to propose if it gets a 2.5, we lay 2.5 with A&M as a B grade.
You're setting me up for heartbreak, but sure, let's do it.
All right, we'll go with a lean on A&M at -3, but we don't really think it's investable until it gets below 3.
Yep.
On the total, I kind of think this is a fool me once, fool me twice thing, but I really think under 56 is the right side here. There is some variability, so it wouldn't get an A grade for me, but I do think a B grade under 56 might be worth a look, because I think that this A&M defense is pretty good. I don't think that Florida's offense is going to be able to have success against it, and I don't.
Yeah. Okay. So you can talk me into that, because if I go back and look at A&M, the game last week against Ole Miss, Ole Miss had one drive where they got 3 third down conversions via penalty and one like quarterback scramble on 3rd and 9 or something. And so you take away that drive, maybe you take away Ole Miss's fake punt on 4th down from like their own 20-yard line. It was one of the guts. I mean, Lane Kiffin was on his stuff on Saturday.
So I guess this tweet where he tweeted out that Lane Kiffin was sitting watching Judkins or whatever. Like it's like a retweet without like retweeting. He just copied the words over. So it's like from Lane Kiffin sitting at whatever in the rain. I was like, come on, dude.
That seems right. So sure, you take that stuff out. I think that Ole Miss game goes under. You talk about the kickoff return for a touchdown just to open the game against South Carolina, and that kills an under like that. So sure, let's go B grade under 56, just under the premise that if all it has taken is 1 or 2 key plays in each of the past 2 games, and then would have gone under. So sure, I can get on board with that.
Right. And I don't think there's really a spot where it'd be an A grade, just because the weird things that have happened in A&M games, I'm just a little bit leery. But I think B grade under makes a lot of sense, and especially above a key number like 55. At 55.5, 56, I think it's a B grade under.
Yeah.
And then again, we'll lean A&M. If it gets a 2.5, it's a B grade pick for us. Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to lay the 3 with Texas A&M. I just think there's something weird going on in Florida. They just kicked off what was probably their best defensive player. Don't trust Anthony Richardson, and I mean there just seems to be a lot of craziness. And I mean this is the same team that basically quit on their coach last year about this time when things started going wrong. So I'm not saying that doing that and that's just kind of a gut feel. I don't have any actual information for it. It just doesn't feel like things are going right there in Florida, and I think Texas A&M is going to take advantage of it because it appears they do have a quarterback, and I mean Evan Stewart seems to be a great receiver. That's going to be that's going to be fun to have over the next few years.
They're going to have. That's the thing. I think they're going to have more than one good receiver now that they have an above average quarterback. So I am excited about that if he has time to throw.
Yeah. And what Jimbo does to him, which is also wildly TBD. If it wasn't for this lineman issue, I really would love laying the 3 with A&M. I think sometimes that just really throws offenses. That's my only concern. But I agree with where you're going, Jake. Especially given that Florida played a pretty good game against Georgia. We talked about that was kind of their Super Bowl-ish. I mean, not really. They're going to probably, what they're 4-4, so I mean they still have bowl eligibility on the table, that sort of thing. But that's a big game for them, and they were down and they fought back and they hung in there. And coming off of that, now to travel on the road again, it's not a great spot for them.
I just think that took everything out of them because I mean
it's very possible
when you look at it. They had the third quarter. Other than that, they scored 3 points.
Yeah,
and
But they, like you said, they came out at the half and fought, and that they put like everything they had into it, and then still didn't really sniff a victory against a rival. And now next week, it could be a kind of a letdown spot. Not that they won, but just like you said, kind of takes it all out of them. Obviously, Cousin Jared's hoping that's true as an Aggie fan and alum. Moving from his game to mine, Baylor and Oklahoma, a 3 p.m. Eastern kick in Norman. Sideline says this should be Oklahoma -3. Sideline's got Oklahoma ranked 18th, Baylor ranked 20th. I know that Oklahoma beat Iowa State. Iowa State's been a weird team this year, though. They've drugged teams down into weird games. Baylor beat Iowa State too. I still don't think that I believe in this Oklahoma team. I think that Iowa State is not built to exploit their bad defense. Kansas kind of was and scored off of them, but also that was without Daniels. I think now this is the first team that Oklahoma is going to face here since that Texas game that has an offense that can take advantage of those defense. I think Baylor scores a lot. I think Oklahoma scores a lot too. They do have a good offense, and this Baylor defense is not as good as it was last year. I'm expecting a lot of points. I'm really surprised that this total is only 61.5. It seems like it should be in the upper 60s to me. I wouldn't be surprised if this game got into the 70s. The Baylor overs the last 2 weeks have either won or pushed, depending on when you got the number based off when we recommended it. When we recommended, the number got better. And so you might have won. Hopefully you did. If not, we officially pushed on the last 2 weeks in the Baylor over. I expect this one to win. I don't really see either team getting a lot of stops because I think it's a last team that has the ball win situation. I think it makes sense taking the points with Baylor simply because you're getting the hook. If this was in Waco and it was Baylor -3.5, I'd probably say the same thing about taking the 3.5 with Oklahoma. I don't really know what to make of this game other than I just think taking the points makes a lot of sense because it's 3 and the hook. And like I said, last team that has the ball wins. Moneyline might also not be a bad play on Baylor just because anything can happen. So just take plus odds. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised with many outcomes in this one. So I definitely don't want to lay points or lay odds in a game that I don't really know what to make of either one of these teams, despite the fact that we're in November. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us on this one?
Yep, lean Baylor, take the 3.5 points. That's good enough. Lean the hook is nice there. My analysis of the total it kind of follows like a computer programming language. Is it a Big 12 game? Yes. Is Iowa State involved in the game? No. A grade on the over.
There you go. Yeah, so we'll go A grade on the over 61.5. Is there a point where you would invest with Baylor? Is it +4? Is it just if the money line gets to a certain point, just saying, hey, who the heck knows? So take some nice plus odds.
I think I would lean towards the money line more than the points because this game, like you said, who knows? There could be a lot of points. They may not matter. So I would lean towards the money line.
All right. So our official recommendation, if you're playing this, then is to maybe look more plus odds on the money line on Baylor. Definitely don't throw Oklahoma into your money line parlays because this could be a wild game. Either team could win this by 20, and I don't think I'd be surprised. We've seen Baylor go into Norman in recent years and destroy Oklahoma, and we've also seen Oklahoma destroy a lot of teams too. So anything could happen here. Because we'll talk off show and update Patreon if we decide the moneyline price is reasonable enough to get to a B grade pick. Otherwise, for now, our official position is just lean Baylor, lean the points, lean the moneyline, whatever. But we love the over 61.5. It's an A grade. Jake, what do you have?
I'm taking the points with Baylor here. I don't think there's a reason not to, and I'm playing the over. I'm not sure where all this respect for Oklahoma came from. I mean, Nothing has shown up that's impressed me. What they played Kansas last, and I mean that was a Kansas team without.
It's 2 weeks ago without Daniels. Yeah, Iowa State last week,
and that's. I mean, it's not a very impressive victory for me yet. And I mean, I think Baylor is. I don't understand why Baylor's the underdog here. I thought this would be much closer to a pick 'em. So I'm going to ride a little bit on the money line, and I'm taking the points, but. And I think this flies over. Neither team can really stop each other, and I don't think they really plan to.
Yeah. There's a real case to be made that some combination of Kansas, Iowa State, and West Virginia are your bottom 3, and then Oklahoma is your next worst team in the conference. And I say that knowing Oklahoma has a bunch of big games left on their schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost out. I mean, they could win out too. Like they have talent for sure, and they've got a good offense. It's the defense that has all the questions. And given what we saw from Oklahoma against TCU, Kansas State, and Texas, who are 3 solid teams, but it's one of those things where they've got a bunch of toss-up games down the stretch, and it's going to determine their season if they're on the right side of those or the wrong side of those. They got the first one with Iowa State, but The difference being that Iowa State wants to grind you out and doesn't have quite that same offense that Texas and TCU have. And somehow even Adrian Martinez lit them up. So that was obviously before his injury. So I think this Baylor offense can score some points here. Obviously, as a fan, I hope they can pull that out. And then on to Jake's game, which was not done on purpose, but 3:30 Eastern, Tennessee at Georgia. Georgia's an 8-point favorite, a total of 66. I look, after those ratings came out and we have Tennessee number 1, I feel like Georgia's going to win this game by a million. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, it feels like if there's ever any us against the world thing that you could ever say from a defending national champion, it feels like this. Not to say that Tennessee hasn't had an impressive season, but knowing that now Georgia is at home, defending national champions, hasn't lost, and now has to play the number 1 team, feels like if there was any lack of motivation, that's gone now. Sideline says this should be Georgia at minus 8.7, so it's pretty well hung. Before I even ran the model on this, I obviously knew this game was coming, and I was thinking to myself, between 7 and 10 seems right. If it was 7 or less, I'm all over Georgia. If it's 10 or more, I'm all over Tennessee. Yep. In between the two is tough. I know a lot of people want to put money on this game. It's the big game, but I do think it's priced fairly well in this 8.5 range. Because in Jared, between that or the total of 66, is there any direction you can give our viewers?
Not really. Other than you had a retweet today that kind of indicated that I don't feel like, let me back up. The public is all over Tennessee here. Okay. I don't feel like there's anything that I have seen that would make me think that taking the 8 points with Tennessee wouldn't be the right side. Just knowing what we know about their offense and saying that, they're probably going to score enough points to where I can easily see this being a 1-score game. And
this Georgia defense doesn't seem like last year's, where it's like, I don't care how good Tennessee's offense is, they're going to struggle. Like, you can score off this Georgia defense.
Nolan Smith's done for the year.
And so there is some concerns about the Georgia defense. But the point of kind of what the tweet was saying was that it's almost like the books are taking a stance here, and they're kind of planting their flag with Georgia, and they're saying, okay, public, you can have Tennessee, books, we're taking Georgia. And in that scenario, I'm going to go with the books. And so I would lean towards laying the points with Georgia. But again, for no reason, I think this is a very well-placed line. I haven't seen anything with my eyes that would make me think otherwise. It's just more of, it feels like the books are seeing something or putting their money in one place. So I think I want to be with them.
I would agree with that. Let's lean officially Georgia minus 8 if you're going to pick them or a contest. It's not one that I think really should be invested in. If you want to really invest in this, and because Jared, we say this maybe once a week, maybe once every other week. This I think is a live bet opportunity. Less so about how the game goes and more about just maybe waiting for a different number to appear, right? Live bet it after sometime in the middle of the first quarter and the second quarter when you've got more of a favorable number to whichever side you're after, whether Georgia scores early and you think, and you can get Tennessee plus 14.5, or whether, Tennessee scores early and you can get Georgia minus 2.5, whatever, right?
Yeah.
One of those things where just wait for a better number than this. And again, we rarely say this, but I do think this is one of the times where I would think about live betting. And to your point, I've said this before, there are a lot of games and a lot of books, and I've heard this from people at sports conferences who make these lines from these different books. And they say there's a lot of games where they have their line, they have their model, they will move it if money comes in from a handful of people. There's a small number of people they respect. And otherwise, a lot of times they'll say, we think we're going to be right more times than not. Like you said, it feels like a game that they're just taking a stance saying, we think we've got our good number. And they haven't seen enough money come in from the people that they respect in order to change it. Because they're willing to say, maybe we're wrong if the right people are doing it. But apparently the right people aren't on that side and making them change it. They're taking their stance. And so, I'm with you. I think it makes sense to lean Georgia, but it's not one I want to be overly invested in. Total of 66.
Got nothing.
All right, Jake, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm on Tennessee, and you're going to claim it's a hard play, but I just don't think there's more than a touchdown between these two teams. It's not the same Georgia defense that was last year, where they could have stopped some of these NFL offenses with what they had. They also took some hits from a pass rush standpoint. They've not got the talent at running backs that they had last year with Cook and White, who just tore Tennessee up. I mean, their offense is playing a lot better than last year's offense, but I think it's because they've had to. And we really haven't seen Georgia tested specifically with a good offense. So that's why I don't think Tennessee will win. I'll get that out of there. I think Brock Bowers is way too much of a matchup problem for anybody. That I think that's going to be a big difference. And then their backup tight ends are probably better than most people's starting tight ends.
Probably true.
But I think Tennessee's offense is good enough to score and keep up. I mean, Cedric Tillman tore him up last year, had 200 yards receiving on 10 catches. And, I mean, Hooker had his last interception until the Bama game this year on this game. And he seems to be playing better. The line's playing better. We're running the ball better. I think the real key to this game is Stetson Bennett versus the Tennessee secondary. If the secondary shows up and plays like it did against Kentucky, there's a decent chance Tennessee can win this. But like I said, I think Brock Bowers is too much of a matchup problem. I don't know who we're going to check him with. I think Georgia wins, but I don't think it's by more than a touchdown.
So I think we should be on the over.
I want to lean the over.
And here's now, and Cousin Jared, you could hold me till we got to get 65. It probably won't happen if that's the stance you want to take. Let me pitch the over. Tennessee scored 44 points on Kentucky, who has a pretty decent defense.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's defense isn't as good as last year. Georgia's offense is infinitely better than Kentucky's is. I think this number is hanging low because there's a little bit too much respect for Georgia's defense and the style of play they had last year. But if this game played out kind of like the Alabama game, I wouldn't be that surprised. I feel like there should be a lot of points in this game. And if Kentucky couldn't stop Tennessee whatsoever, Georgia might stop them a little bit more, but I still think Tennessee easily gets into the 30s. Georgia's offense is good enough and Tennessee's defense is bad enough. They get to the 30s. I mean, this game has to get into the 60s, right? And at that point, we're not that far away from getting the win at 66.
Yeah, sure. Let's give it a B grade on the over. That's fine. I want something to be invested in this game because it's going to be a good game. So a big game where I'm going for points, I can get behind that.
All right. So on the side, Cousin Jared and I's recommendation is wait for a live bet. See if you can get a favorable side. Jake's going to go ahead and grab the 8. Doesn't think there's a touchdown difference between the two teams. And then Cousin Jared and I will have an official B grade on the over 66. Thinking there'd be a lot of points. Jake wants to, but is hesitant to take the over as well.
Yeah. I'm probably going to wait and see what that first offensive possession looks like from Tennessee, then probably play it.
All righty. 3:30 Eastern, UCF at Memphis. Should be a solid game here. UCF is a 3.5-point road favorite. Sideline ranks them 27th, Memphis 59th, but says that UCF should be favored by 6.1. It's a solid little edge there. Obviously, 3 would be better than 3 in the hook, but I feel like we've seen with Memphis, they're a little bit like SMU, which we'll talk about shortly. They can handle the weak teams. They struggle against the better teams. I think UCF's a pretty good team. They lost that game to East Carolina a couple of weeks ago, but East Carolina's a pretty good team too, and I think a much better team than Memphis is. I think UCF can go on the road and get this done. Total's 59. I think what we've seen with Memphis is they constantly give up big plays despite wanting to be an under team. So I sure would not play this under 59. My lean would be over. I'm not sure if that's something we want to invest in or not, but I would lean over and I would lean taking the 3.5 with UCF. Because Jared, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I would. So I'm good. I'm good with giving a B grade to laying the 3.5 with UCF. I just think that they're a much better team than Memphis is, even on the road. I would
A grade at 3 or 2.5.
I would need 2.5 because it's freaking Memphis. I can't stand them. The other thing that
noted, duly noted.
The other thing I would say, you're right about Memphis giving up big plays. The other thing is John Reese Plumlee, day to day. So that kind of like gives me a little bit of pause on the over. But I've also mentioned on here a couple of times that like UCF, they've put up some points this season, but they always haven't had the offensive statistics to back up putting up those numbers. So I would recommend staying away from this total. I think there's just too many unknowns with I think UCF's offense has been a little bit of a mirage, and I think Memphis is Memphis.
There you go. So we'll officially pass in the total, but go B grade. UCF minus 3.5. If it gets 2.5, we will lock that in as an A grade. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm skipping this game. It feels like a letdown spot and also a trap spot. You've got the big game coming off Cincy. That was big for them, that big win. Next week, they've got number 19 Tulane. They're looking ahead. Memphis is bad, and they're giving up a stupid amount of points. So I want to pull the trigger on UCF, but I just think it feels trappy, and I don't want to put my money on it.
And I think to your point there, I think that's why we were saying we couldn't give this an A grade at this number. At a lower number, it is because it does feel like a spot where UCF just wants to escape with a victory, and then we just have to cross our fingers that it's a 6-point victory and not less. UCF, if they go out there and play, should win by more than a touchdown.
I just think they might be looking ahead because they lost to Eastern Carolina in between the Cincy game and whoever they played before that.
Yeah,
Houston maybe. So I can't remember.
SMU. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever it was, it looked a lot like these next 2 games or like 3 games in a row here. Kind of like that, so it kind of scares me.
Yeah. We'll go again because Jared, I go B grade. Want a lower number for an A grade. Jake is passing on that one. Also at the same time slot, BYU at Boise State. Boise State is a 7.5-point favorite. BYU with a massive fall from grace. Boise State looking great. Look, if I know one thing about Boise State, y'all, it's you got to zig and you got to zag. They look amazing, so I think it's time to fade them here. I've been against BYU all season. I think we should be taking the 7.5 with BYU. Looking under the hood a little bit, I think this is a little bit of an overreaction. This BYU team is not good, but I do think that they could hang in there and lose this game by 1 score. Total is 54.5. That seems like 10 points too low, right? BYU has no defense. Boise can score.
Can Boise score?
On BYU, they can.
Okay.
I think we could score on BYU.
We could.
Yeah. I just feel like we're going. So I completely agree with you. I think the model or sideline would say that this number is spot on. But do you want to make BYU a B grade?
I do.
Okay. So let's make taking the 7.5.
No way I could make it an A grade because Boise's involved and they're just a wonky team always. But I do think B grade on BYU makes a lot of sense. At 7 and the hook.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree. Let's do that. Man, after how Boise started the season, how are we telling our loyal viewers that they should be investing in an over in a Boise game? I mean,
their offense has looked a lot better since the start of that season.
Better. It's I would still say maybe the statistics don't back up how many points they have put up. Like in some of the games that they've put up some bigger points, like San Diego State did nothing against them, was not able to hold on to the ball at all. Colorado State, exact same thing. Maybe you could say Fresno State game. That gives you a little bit of hope, maybe that they can kind of get some things going. So sure, with how BYU has looked, I think they're still giving up yards to Arkansas. I think they're still giving up yards to Liberty.
Liberty just scored probably.
Liberty. And I think that they also, ECU, I can't remember, ran for like 6 or 7 yards a carry against them last week. So sure, let's give Boise a B grade over.
I think this is a score fest here. 55 being such a key number. It feels like there should be a lot of points in this. BYU can give them up, and I think they'll score too. They still have a good offense. Their issues have just been on defense. So I think this is a high scoring game. So we'll go double B grade, BYU plus 7.5 and over 54.5. Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm taking the over here. I had it wrote down in my notes at 58, so I wasn't going to play it, but now I see that I was off by 4 points. I want the over. I don't think anybody stops anybody, and BYU just seems to be like kind of North Carolina like, where they're just like, we'll fix your offense for you,
right? Yeah,
and then proceed to let you run all over them.
You do wonder, of course, this time of year, it's probably if the total has dropped, it's probably because of some weather fiasco, but I'm not sure if weather matters in this game. Like, I think that there's just no way that either of these teams get stops. I mean, it does look like, a little bit of rain potentially, but I'm not sure rain. I think it needs to be a monsoon before I'd be worried about these teams getting stops.
Right.
Because I don't think Boise needs to throw the ball to score the points.
Well, you don't need to not against BYU, absolutely. Speaking of some of those teams BYU's play here, Liberty and Arkansas are playing. Arkansas is a 13.5-point favorite. This is 14 earlier in the week. Obviously, I like getting that 14 a lot more, but Liberty's a team that consistently plays well against these bigger opponents. Total 63. I feel like this is a Liberty in an over spot. I'd feel a lot better at the over at 62, knowing that we can get a couple field goals in the push protection there. I feel a lot better at Liberty at plus 14, but those would be the directions I would lean in this one. Sideline has Arkansas ranked 26, Liberty all the way down to 71st, but says that Arkansas should only be a 13-point favorite. So the model says there's a little bit of value And again, I think it's not able to understand that Liberty just does play better against these bigger teams than they do against some of the weaker teams where they purposely aren't showing all the toys that they've got in the garage. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us on this one?
Are you going to make me give Liberty a B grade?
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. We'll give Liberty a B grade. And not that I think that's a bad play. I definitely think that's the right side. I just, I just don't feel
I'm
like
fine with saying it's a B grade and we want to hold off and just wait and see if it gets to 14 before locking it in, if you want that.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do that just in case. Cause I'm wondering if this might, go up to 14 just cause the names involved. So I would say let's hold off on that.
I think it's just like we did with Air Force. In yesterday's show, and that got up to 7 for us, and so we were able to lock in. I think Liberty's a B grade play. We'll just hold off and see if it doesn't get to 14. If it's 13 and a half, we'll lock that in Saturday. If it does get up to 14, that's where we'll jump as our official B grade play.
Yeah. Okay. So let's hold off on that, and then I can get on board with giving a B grade to over 63. And the reason that I say that is not necessarily because of what Liberty or Arkansas did against BYU, but when you look at what Liberty did against Wake Forest, who may be
similar.
Similar to Arkansas,
a little bit different in how they do it, but still the same sort of weak defense and scores a lot of points.
Yeah, and then I would also say like what Arkansas did last week, even against Auburn, because Auburn's got a bunch of issues. Defense, for the most part, this season hasn't been one of them. And I mean, Arkansas could have scored 50-something points in that game if they would have wanted to. So I can get behind giving a B grade to the over 63.
All right, so we'll go double B grades on that one. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm playing the over. Neither of these teams really like to stop each other, and they'll both score. BYU is a common opponent, and I think both those games soared past this number.
I don't think Liberty BYU didn't because BYU decided not to score against Liberty, but I don't think Arkansas will have that problem.
Oh, yeah. I think I had the Wake Forest number in my head. It was 41-42 or something like that.
But Liberty put up 40-some points there in that one, so they did their part offensively.
I mean, it's crazy the amount of points Liberty's been scoring. Like, it just doesn't jive with how they normally play. And then Arkansas, they don't. Their defense gets good ratings for some reason. So in some places, but all they do is pressure the quarterback well. If they complete a pass, there's nobody there to stop it.
And that leads to higher scoring games because when you're pressuring the quarterback, it's going to lead to quick three. It's going to lead to a lot of first play sacks, which is going to put you behind the chains and a punt quickly. We got the ball back, or it's going to lead to their single coverage down the field. If someone's off by a step, boom, 70-yard touchdown. Right? It's that high variance type leads to a lot of points type defense.
Yeah, and I mean Sanders is one of my favorite players. That's not talked about enough of how good he is. The running back from Arkansas. I think he'll have a field day here too. And I'm waiting on 14 because I want the 2 touchdowns because for some reason I got a feeling Arkansas will put their foot
that push
down
protection on 14 feels like it could be very valuable in this game.
Yeah, so I'm waiting on that, but I think this game flies over.
Yep. All right, so we all kind of like the over there. We all kind of like Liberty, just waiting on 14. 4 p.m. Eastern, South Alabama is a 4-point road favorite at Georgia Southern. South Alabama, I've got ranked 57th. Georgia Southern, 81st. Sideline says this should be a 3.7 point spread, so priced pretty well. Total is 60.5. Because, Joe, do you have any insight for us here?
Nope. Not really. Seems like a well-priced line. I think I would actually go opposite of sideline here, and I think I would lean towards laying the points. With South Alabama, I think they've been more consistent this season. It's easy to get caught up with Georgia Southern's offense, some of the points they put up this season. But I think I would, lean towards, laying the points with South Alabama. But if we disagree, we can let sideline be.
I agree. The models like Georgia Southern all year, probably a little bit too much. So it says 3.7. If I make a manual kind of mental, it's got a little bit of a Georgia Southern bias. Maybe that makes it 4.2 or something. So that puts it on that side. So I think laying the 4 makes sense. I'd invest at 3 as a B grade if it gets there.
Okay. Yep. I think so.
Total of 60.5. Georgia Southern likes to score. South Alabama's had some games where they've scored, and they've had some games where they're just like, we don't want to score.
Yeah. And I mean, you could write that off as some of the opponents that South Alabama has played, but it's
Days
just not enough.
The game's been on.
Yeah, but it's not enough to make me feel comfortable. I think 59 would be the number where I would go with the over.
All right, so I'll make a note there. We'll go over 59. We'll go South Alabama if it gets to -3. Otherwise, we lean South Alabama, but nothing official from us. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm playing both. I'm playing South Alabama -4, and I'm playing the over 60.5 because I don't think this goes down. I think it'll only move up. So I want to lock it in now. I mean, South Alabama's got a fairly good offense, and Georgia Southern has to have a great offense because they literally rank 123rd in both pass and rush defense. So I think South Alabama's going to have a field day, score all the points. And I mean, South Alabama's not a great defensive team, so I think Southern's going to get on the board. So I think we're going to get to over 60 or like 61, 65, laying somewhere in there. And I think the difference in the game is Georgia Southern gets stopped for a field goal once or twice, and South Alabama they don't get in South Alabama's way. And I swear I would have had that over with them last week if the flood from Noah's Ark didn't show up in that game. And just murder everything because they still put up 31 in that. It was just Arkansas State couldn't do anything.
To the night games, 7 p.m. Eastern. SMU's a 3-point favorite at home against Houston. We talk about SMU a lot, a team that can beat up on the bad teams, struggles with the good teams. I don't think any of us know what Houston is. Sideline ranks them 56th and has SMU at 46th. So Sideline's official take is that SMU is the better team and at home, and thus they should be a 4-point favorite, not a 3-point favorite. But there's a little bit of juice on SMU. Actually Sideline doesn't give this a positive edge at this number. So it would say stay away. Total of 66.5, which last year would have been an interesting discussion based off the way Houston was playing. This year, I don't think I'd go under given that SMU's involved, but that's such a high number that I'm not loving the over. Cousin Jared, what's your take on this one?
Do we know who's playing quarterback for SMU? So that is my first question. So Tanner Mordecai got hurt in the Cincinnati game, had to leave the game. Preston Stone came in. Preston Stone, one of the highest rated recruits in SMU history. He broke his collarbone against Tulsa, is out for the season. The third stringer played the rest of the game. It looks like Mordecai was not available. He's in the concussion protocol. They don't know if he's going to be able to come back this week. If the third stringer for SMU is playing, I would lean towards taking the 3 points with Houston. It's Houston. I don't have a ton of faith in them, but it does feel like the last minute come from behind win at Memphis potentially could salvage some part of their season because it was just all bad before then, and it has been mostly good since then. So until I know who's playing for SMU, I think I would lean towards taking the 3 points at this time, obviously pending if we think that Mordecai's going to come back.
Right. And of note, SMU being 4-4, there's a lot of teams we're entering November here. We're in the later part of the season that are eyeing their schedule and saying, we got to find 2 more wins. We got to find 3 more wins. Some teams just got to find 1 more win, but it doesn't look great, right? So there's a lot of teams hunting for those wins here. SMU, I've looked at their schedule specifically. Houston's at 5 wins. We're getting to the point where these teams are definitely wanting to go ahead and lock that bowl eligibility in. But obviously quarterback issues could throw a wrench into that. So we will lean officially Houston. But do check back if there's anything interesting on this. We'll update that on Patreon because the quarterback situation really matters there. If it is a third-string quarterback, you have to think the under 66.5 makes a lot of sense, right? Makes some sense. If it's not, obviously not.
You would think. I don't feel like I've seen a ton of consistency from either one of these teams this season. Houston, I think, like literal consistency, like putting up points on the board. I think of SMU and I think about that Cincinnati game. I was thinking Cincinnati. Cincinnati wasn't able to finish a drive in that game.
It's almost like 7 field goals or something crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like And so I just don't feel like I've seen a bunch of consistency from either one of these. I think that's where I would lean again if I knew who was starting for SMU.
Yeah. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go full out and go the over. I don't think these teams play defense. I mean, both of them are averaging, giving up in the 30s while scoring 35, 33 points, something like that between them. So I think this game is going to rain points, even if it is the third string quarterback. I think it's just going to be points everywhere. I don't really care who wins. Don't have an idea who's going to win it. So I'm just going to cheer for points.
All right. Yeah, if it wasn't a third string quarterback, I'm with you on the over. With that, I don't know. It starts getting a lot tougher. A lot of times the backups aren't that much worse than the starter. There's obviously exceptions to that. Probably 10 or 12 or so around the country, we can say that the backup is a lot worse than the starter. But there's a lot of situations where the backup is a point worse, 2 points worse, 3 points worse, stuff like that. You get to the third stringer. Sometimes the third stringer is 4 points worse. Sometimes he's like 12 points worse. Sometimes you just never really know. There's a lot of question marks there. So we'll keep an eye on that one as the week progresses. To one of the more interesting night games here, Alabama and LSU. Alabama is a 13.5-point favorite. This also was 14 earlier in the week. Sideline says it should be Alabama minus 11.6. That's got LSU at 15. I think they're 10th in the playoff ratings at this point, something like that.
Yeah.
It's surprising how I felt like after that first game, it was like they were done, and they've hung in there and played really well, finding some life here, rising towards the top of that division. Whereas I remember in the preseason episode, we wondered they might be the worst team in that division, and they've done surprisingly well, I think. I feel like this is too many points for an Alabama team that I just don't trust at this point. We haven't seen them, barely beating A&M, barely beating Texas, the loss to Tennessee. Their only impressive victory was Mississippi State, but according to the sideline, LSU is a much better team than Mississippi State. This game being in Baton Rouge, night game should be a crazy crowd. I feel like we should take the 13.5. The question is just, do you want to play this like Liberty and just hold off to see if it gets back to 14, knowing that might matter? Or do we say with an SEC game and kickers involved, 13.5 is probably sufficient?
I would say hold off. Let's see if it gets to 14 again. Yeah, like you would think money would come in on Alabama towards the end of the week. So I have to apologize, viewer, because I said last week that I had takes on this game. But the thing is that I thought for sure this line was going to open at like 10 or something. I didn't think that it would be 14. And so I don't have any more takes. My takes are gone because I expected this to be a much lower line. So sure, we can wait in 14 and make it a play on LSU, but I don't think that LSU has as much of a chance in this game as probably the average person does, because Jaden Daniels just does so much for that LSU offense. And if there is one thing that I think that Nick Saban can do, even though we haven't seen, the absolute best from Alabama's defense this season, is I think that he can take away a lot or most of Jaden Daniels' running plays. He's going to stick a spy on him. It's going to make it really tough for him to run around. And I think when you do that LSU offense becomes a lot more pedestrian. So that was going to be my hot take, but not at a number like 14. So just pretend like you didn't hear that.
Total of 56.5. If you're concerned that LSU isn't going to score as much, does that mean you would lean under, or given that Alabama's just been involved in so many high scoring games that would?
Yeah, it's a stay away, because I think it's just Alabama's been involved in too many high scoring games.
Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm so excited for this game, but not from a gambling perspective. I think this is just a really great game to watch. I mean, I think LSU can give them a game, but, I mean, the way Tennessee got to Bama was throwing it deep and throwing it all over them, and I don't trust Daniels to have the arm. They really need the run to set up his throwing. And, like, Tennessee did exactly what Jared was talking about. Like, took away Daniels' ability to run the ball, and Tennessee's got a good front seven, but Bama's is a lot better, especially since one of their better linebackers should still be at Tennessee. Thank you, Henry Toledo. And that's who's probably going to be spying him the whole time. And so it's going to be this game to me feels like a 3-point win by Alabama or a 1,000-point win. Like, I don't think the number so much matters here. I think it's going to be just a blowout or an extremely tight game. Yeah, and I'm just staying away from it.
All righty. At 7 p.m. Eastern, UNLV and San Diego State. I think that Brumfield for UNLV, the quarterback there, is going to be back. Hard to say, but he was maybe going to play 2 weeks ago, didn't. And with the bye week, you feel like if it was even on the table 2 weeks ago, then it probably is that he would play this week. That's the assumption I'm making. San Diego State's looked a lot better as of late. Defense looking good, offense kind of having a pulse, turning into the team we kind of hoped they would be this season, at least. 6.5-point favorites here. Sideline says that this should be a 7-point spread. Total is 47. What direction can you take us on this one, Cousin Jared?
This one is tough because obviously you want to have faith in San Diego State's defense. I think they haven't been quite as good this year. They've still been good, maybe not quite as good with Brumfield coming back with UNLV. I think UNLV might be able to score some points in this game.
They were a real high-scoring team with him involved. And then when he went down, I mean, it just
disappeared. Yeah, disappeared.
They put up some on Notre Dame still, but yeah, just not like they had been before.
Yeah, and then San Diego State, their offense has actually looked pretty good the past couple of weeks.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, surprisingly. And so I just feel like there's too many unknowns for me to be invested in either side of this game.
Yeah.
If you told me there were 31 points, I'd say, sure. You told me there were 55 points. Sure.
Yeah.
I really had the only thing I can say on this one is there's a lot of change, a lot of things that might not be as they immediately appear or have been historically with these two teams.
Yeah.
So just be careful before you invest your dollars here.
Where would you lean on this one with the 6.5 point spread?
I'd lean towards taking the 6.5 points with San Diego State. I still think, it's possible that this one could be low scoring and 6.5 points. Maybe Brumfield's back. Maybe it's higher scoring that 6.5 points is enough. So I would lean towards taking the 6.5.
If we get confirmation he's back, and if it gets to 7, is that investable?
Yeah, we can make that a B grade.
Okay. So that's obviously contingent on him playing. Otherwise, I would not want any part of this. And if I get confirmation he's not playing, I might actually would go the other way and say lay it with San Diego State because he's going to really matter to that offense. Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, I really don't understand either one of these teams, especially with the quarterback injury, so I'm staying away from them. I don't know. I can't help you here.
And this is one of those things too, where news may come out as we're doing this, or by the time you watch this. So you may have more information as you're watching this than we do right now with the quarterback. I'm assuming he plays, but I haven't gotten any confirmation of it on that as of yet. I've seen it at least. So confirmation he plays or doesn't play, I think really matters when you're eyeing this one. 7:30 Eastern, another quarterback situation. Rising did not play for Utah on Thursday. That was a last minute thing. Again, I'm working under the assumption that he's going to play this week. In general, when you have, especially on a Thursday night or Friday, I can't remember which one it was, or a weeknight game, and a guy's a last minute out, I assume he's back the next week, because if he's going to be out for that long, then it shouldn't have been a last minute thing. Maybe they were just being coy and we got played, but I'm assuming he's going to play. Arizona wants to just score 1 billion points on everybody, and they're comfortable giving up 2 billion points to everybody. So I'm going to argue that we go over 68. I think that's a quasi-key number for being out here. Probably not as much as 69 is, I guess. But so I think we're at least on the right side of that one, but I think we should be going over, and I want to lay the 17.5 with Utah. We could also argue to play this one a little bit more conservative in weight, but 17 and 18 are almost just as likely when you get up to this point, because now it just matters about who kicks the field goals, which I don't think there'll be many field goals scored at all, but if there are field goals, you never really know who's going to do it anyway. So 17 and 18 probably equally as key in this spot. But Sideline says this should be Utah minus 24. I've got them ranked 9th. Even if that's a little high, there's still no way that this number shouldn't start with a 2 with the amount of points that Arizona can give up. They're obviously going to fight for a backdoor, but I'm not sure Utah gets stopped in this game. I don't think we've seen Utah's offense be a lot better this year than they were last year, a lot less conservative, and Arizona's going to give up points probably every single drive on this one. Because Jared, what do you have for us?
So I can get behind an A grade laying the points with Utah and a B grade on the over 68. What I would say is if this were at Arizona, I would flip that. I would make it a B grade, laying the points, and an A grade on the over. But playing in Salt Lake City, I think that'll be enough to allow Utah to cover here. But it kind of makes me, does Arizona get rattled by the crowd? I would think not. I think they're just going to give a bunch of points. But I can only get to a B grade on the over 68.
I completely agree. If this was in Arizona, I would say the possibility, and obviously the number would be a little bit different, but I would just say the possibility for a backdoor is more likely, and it's more likely to be like a 50-40 type game than in Utah. It feels more like a 45-25 if it doesn't quite get into those crazy 80s and 90s and stuff like that. That seems more likely to be where it lands. So that's officially an A grade for us, laying 17.5 with Utah. Again, 17-18, both kind of key. So you can wait, hope it goes to 17. You're a little bit risking if it goes to 18. So we'll just lock in 17.5. That's where it is right now. And then total of 68, we're going to go over with a B grade. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm taking Utah here, assuming that Cam Rising plays. I don't know that Arizona can stop most high schools from scoring 40-plus points at this point. Like every true Power 5 team.
Editor's note, they probably could.
Yeah,
probably.
Speaking a little bit of hyperbole. But, I mean, every true Power 5 school, because I don't count Colorado, has scored at least 39 on them. So I don't see any reason Utah's going to stop that. Going to Utah's hard. Their defense isn't as good as what we thought this year, but they're still good enough to let them win this by 20.
Yeah. The implied team total for Utah in this game would be 42.5.
Feels right.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'd say this game being about like 42-45 for Utah.
I was going to say 45-24.
Yeah. And that gets us all the wins, right?
Yeah.
Let's lock it in. 45-24. We're calling our shot, guys.
Yeah.
I put like a tenth of the unit on the exact score. I think some places offer that. See what happens.
If so, that would pay a lot if it landed right on that one. 7:30 Eastern, Auburn at Mississippi State. Auburn finally making a coaching move that we've been talking on the show about like every single week. I'm glad it happened. Now we can finally stop talking about it. Kind of makes sense after what a disastrous performance.
Against Arkansas,
Man, Auburn's got enough talent to not have that happen to them, but my goodness, that was terrible. This week, partially based off of that performance, Sideline has dropped them all the way to 64th in the rankings. 3-5 and a bowl just does not look likely for them at this point of the season. They would need a massive upset, if not two, at this point of the season to pull that off. Mississippi State's ranked 22nd. Sideline says they should be favored by 14. They are favored by 13. Total's 51. Because Jared, what do you have for us?
Not touching this game with a 10-foot pole. I think that the black cloud over Auburn is now gone. Cadillac Williams is the interim coach. Yes, we are all old. And I think that Auburn could come out and play inspired in this game. If I had a lean, I'd definitely still lean towards laying to 13 points with Mississippi State. Auburn has been playing below their talent level, but at the same time, they've had a bunch of guys decide they're going to transfer out. And so I would still lean towards laying the 13 points, but God knows what you're going to see in this game on Saturday.
Completely agree. It's not a game I want to be invested in, but we will lean at Mississippi State, laying the points if you're in a pick'em contest or something like that, but it's not one that I think is worth investing. And same with the total. Like anything can happen in this total, and I wouldn't be surprised. Auburn could give up a ton of points. Mississippi State's defense is solid, and so this could be a low-scoring game. The total's pretty low as it is, but this game could land in the 30s, and I wouldn't be that surprised. They could get up into the 60s, and I wouldn't be that surprised. I have no idea what's going to happen. So it should be interesting to see how it plays out, but not one that I'm going to invest in as well. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't want any part of this. I don't like betting against new coaches because, there's not a lot of statistical, actual data, but that new coach bump seems to happen for some reason, one way or the other. So I don't like that, but I would lean Mississippi State. But, they're also coming off 2 losses with very physical teams with Bama and Kentucky. So I don't want no part of this because
they at least had the bye week last week.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, then they lost their AD to Auburn, so I don't know. This is all sorts of weird. I don't want any part of it.
One other game here at the 7:30 Eastern time slot. Clemson at Notre Dame. Clemson's a 3.5-point road favorite. Total, this one's come down to 44.5. We have some windy conditions in the Midwest expected for Saturday. I did a quick search though. Almost all of the stadiums that I looked at, and maybe I missed one, but almost all the stadiums are oriented north-south, and the wind's going to be out of the south, and so it looks like it's going to be mostly winds behind people or in your face. Again, that doesn't affect the total at all. It creates a little bit more variability, but it turns out where it can definitely help you throw in the deep ball when the wind's in your face. It can cause you to have a 12-foot punt or 12-yard punt, that sort of thing. And so it doesn't really affect scoring. Side-to-side wind does kill scoring, but it looks like all these windy games are going to be not side to side, which is what throws havoc into passing games. Of course, I'm not sure either one of these teams knows how to pass the ball. So kind of a moot point anyway in that one. I think we all, at least because Jared, I think you and I both like Clemson in this one. Sideline says this should be a 7-point spread. I've got Clemson ranked at 7th. I've been kind of on Clemson all year, except for the Syracuse game, which is going to live in infamy now. But I think that I've zigged and zagged with them most of the year. I think they're a much better team than Notre Dame. I think they go on the road and get the victory. They might win by 3, but they could also easily just as easily win by 4, 6, or 7 if it's close. They could run away with this one. Notre Dame has had some really bad games this year.
Yeah,
the ACC is down, but I still just think Clemson's played better against teams that have had a pulse. They played NC State before Leary went down, for example, and they looked better in that game. They looked better against Florida State. They've looked better against some of the competition they faced than Notre Dame, who couldn't cover against UNLV and, lost to Cal and lost to Marshall and that sort of thing. Clemson's just a much better team here. I want to lay the 3.5 for Clemson. Total of 44.5. If you wanted the under, you missed it. I think I texted this to the Discord group as it was going down. I think I said, hey, before it gets to 45, at least get it before that.
Yeah.
It's at least on the right side of 44, which is a key number.
Yeah.
This is your last chance to take the under at 44. If it's on to 43.5, you're really kicking yourself for missing that number. I don't think I played the over, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I'm not a meteorologist. I did not know about the weather. I grabbed the under on this one when it opened at 49. And so it has really shot down. I agree. I want to lay the points with Clemson. I think it's just a question of, do we want to make this an A-grade pick?
I think it's either – I think it's an A-grade pick.
Okay.
I'd love to say 3. I just don't see 3 happening. It was up to 4.5 earlier. I don't see why it would get into 3. If it does, cool. But I think A-grade on Clemson. I just think – and yes, they might win by 3, but I think it's more likely they win by 10 than by 3.
And I think the 3.5 is a direct result of the total on the game going down so much because of the weather. And so I think at this point, with the weather baked in, the only thing that could possibly happen is the total ends up going back up if the weather's not quite as bad as anticipated. And I think this would be more likely to go back to like 4 at that. So I agree. Let's make it an A-grade lane at 3.5 points of Clemson.
On the total, obviously, you already said you got 149. That's nowhere near us and going to happen. The total might come back up. 44 is a key number. Where would you tell our viewers to invest in the under at this point? Would it be at just probably here, or is it maybe it's got to go back up a little bit?
I would wait for 45 because I think 45 could happen again because I think all of the bad weather is just completely baked in at this point. I think it could only go up from here. And so I would still play it at 44.5. I would wait and see if it goes back up to 45. But if you want to be invested in the under here, sure. Go up 44.5 is probably maybe as good as it's going to get. You may get yourself a half point there.
So we're going to officially say we're eyeing the under. Keep an eye on the Patreon. We'll update that if we end up with an under play on this. But we love Clemson here, minus 3.5 A-grade play for us there. Jake, what do you got?
I'm actually on the opposite side. I think, this might be a little bit hard play because I really just need Clemson to lose, so because he still gets in. But they've been flirting a little bit with disaster. You've got that OT game with Wake. I know Wake was just out of their mind offensively that game too. But NC State game got close. Florida State gave them a good game, and also Notre Dame just seems to murder every ACC opponent like they've played so far. They destroyed Syracuse, beat up on North Carolina. And I think both those were on the road. So maybe they can continue that pattern here. I don't think they really win this game, but I think they can do enough to keep it close. Their defense is good. I don't trust Clemson's offense with no matter who's at quarterback here because I just don't think they've got enough weapons to really expose it. And I think Notre Dame can do, especially if the weather is bad. I think that kind of leans more Notre Dame's way than it does Clemson's.
I had nailed Notre Dame almost all season until the Syracuse game. I had them, I think it's an A-grade play against Ohio State they covered. I had Marshall, I think it's an A-grade play, who won. I missed Cal, but then I had them against North Carolina, and everyone told me I was crazy. Mm-hmm. I don't remember BYU. We had Stanford against Notre Dame. We had UNLV who covered. Last week really just kills my Notre Dame buzz because I was rocking and rolling with them. But all right, so we're disagreeing with Jake. Jake's on Notre Dame. Jared and I are on Clemson. Wrapping us up at 10:30 Eastern. Colorado State at San Jose State. San Jose State is a 24-point favorite. San Jose State, I'm not sure should be favored by 24 points over anybody, but you could make the case if it's going to be anybody, it should be Colorado State. They have just been downright disastrous. Now ranked second to last. They are the second worst team, according to Sideline in college football. A spot that had been mostly held by UConn, UMass, New Mexico State, Florida International making the appearance, and all of a sudden now Colorado State dropping at bottom too. Deservedly so with how bad they have been. I mean, they have just been atrocious. Sideline says it should be 22.2, but as we long talk about, anytime you look at the model, it does sometimes struggle with these bottom couple of teams and the top couple of teams. It's really hard to do well. It's built to succeed. more times than not, which means it does much better with the middle teams than the top couple, the bottom couple. Total on this one's 44.5. And part of me says you got to go under because Colorado State can't score. Part of me says you got to go over because Colorado State can't stop anybody. So I don't know what to do with that. Cousin Jared, what's your take on this game?
We talk about a lot of these night games, late at night. Man, I'm telling you, the Pac-12 has really had to carry these night slots this season because the Mountain West has not been doing their part. I want no part of this game. So which way do you want to lean? I would lean towards taking 24 points.
Taking the 24?
Yeah, that's just it's 24 points. That's a lot of points.
It's 24 points in a low total. It's the smart play. It's the practical play. It's a lean. It's not an investable, in my opinion. Yeah. And I'm not sure there's a number you could get to that I would actually invest in that. Nope. It's the direction I would go because I think it's smart. But my goodness, I do not want a dime of my money on Colorado State unless you're going to give me like 50. But that's never going to happen, obviously. So a total 44.5. If you had to go one way or the other, would you go over or under?
I'd go under, but that's a low number that's a low number when a team as bad as Colorado State is involved, where they could just give up 31 points and a half or something.
I will keep an eye on this one. I'll do a little more research. It is there's not a lot of games at that spot, so keep an eye on Patreon. We may have an added play on this just because I know you might want some input there. So we'll kind of keep an eye on the number. Maybe we'll come out. If anything, I'm playing the total on this one. I'm not taking a side. So we'll look at the total. Maybe we'll update it if we can find an angle for you since it's a late game. If not, Jake, what do you have for us?
I'll lean Colorado State, but I wouldn't put my worst enemy's money on Colorado State. So but I don't trust San Jose State to win this by 25.
It's a lot of points.
Yeah. Especially with a total of 44.5. Nope, don't want it.
Yeah, and you could go through San Jose State's schedule and make a lot of cases based off the way they've played. The fact that they only beat Nevada last week by 7, the fact that they lost to Fresno State, that sort of thing. But Colorado State, that's all you need to say.
Yeah.
All right, that covers every game this week. Jake, it is your turn. We're going to run to the kill the clock offense here. Run through all the games that we have covered in previous episodes that you have plays on that you want to give out to the people.
Yeah, I'm going to go quick here. We got Duke -9.5, grabbing that. I really like this Duke team, especially against Boston College. Boston College is bad. Also, we're going to take the over at 46.5. Duke has played a total of 2 games that have landed under this. And I know we'll need a little bit out of Boston College, but I think this Duke offense can really put up some points here, especially on a Boston College team that's as bad as they are. Going to grab Florida State -7.5 and the under 53. I think Van Dyke doesn't want to play anymore, so I think they're going to be playing the backup. And I think Jordan Travis and that receiving core is just absolutely insane. They've got 2 running backs that are averaging over 6.5 yards a carry. Add that to Travis's 5 yards a carry is just. I think they'll be able to dominate this game, and Miami won't be able to do much as we saw against Virginia. Going to grab the over with Oklahoma State and Kansas. I think that was weird that Oklahoma State forgot to score last week. Somebody needs to tell Gundy points win games. But Kansas is not going to get in their way to keep them from doing that. So I think
Kansas like terrible rush defense. Oklahoma State should just run all over them, and it shouldn't be short runs that take a lot of time. It should be long runs, quickly scoring.
Yeah. And I think it opened at 69, and now it's down to like 65.5. So I was like, I like that better. Yeah. So jumped on that. Good Lord, I don't know what's going on in Michigan State. There's I think 8 players suspended at this point, and I don't know if any of them or all of them are actually meaningful.
Do they have? I don't mean this to be rude. Do they have a meaningful player on that team? I mean, I don't mean that as harsh as it sounds. Just as like they've struggled so much. Like I'm not sure. How many guys and who would you take off that would really affect what they've done? They've looked so bad. They've had a couple spurts where they've looked decent, but it's just been flashes in the pan. Otherwise, they've just struggled so much.
Yeah, and I think Illinois will take advantage of this. 16.5 is the highest I'll play it because I think this lands at 17 because I think Bellama will just grind the ball out in the second half. But I'm taking it at 16.5 because I think that's they jump up early and just run it down their throat. I'm going to grab the over in the Texas-Kansas State game. Texas coming off a bye week will give Ewers a chance to get his legs back from under him, maybe rest a little bit. And then Kansas State they showed they can put up points when you just give it to them. And Texas defense is not great by any stretch. So I think 54.5 was a no-brainer to go over that.
Also, and I just want to point out, we already talked about Kansas State, Texas earlier in the week, obviously, but I just do want to point out, if you watch the passes that Ewers made against Oklahoma State, some of that was the wind, and some of those were just truly terrible passes. It really does make you wonder exactly how good he is. I think he's definitely an upgrade over Hudson Card, but we had a lot of hype on him, and some of those passes, even the short passes, were just terrible. And it's like, if he makes those passes, it's going to kill a bunch of drives, and/or Kansas State's going to get some turnovers that,
I mean, he was due to have a freshman quarterback game too. Like, he played so great at Alabama, and then Oklahoma, he just shredded them.
Yeah.
Like, he was due to have one of those weird – because, you
fair
can't
enough.
go from a high school to top-tier college competition and be like, yep.
Yeah,
ready.
He was due, and I hate to use the word, but due for it. It was going to happen eventually, maybe more than most guys, given the fact that he hadn't played. He was out for 2 whole years from playing competitive football. So I guess maybe my point in that is less so like, I think he will be that bad this week, and more about that's part of who he is he's still got some refinement that needs to happen. And he's not going to just lead the Longhorns to a national championship this year, because he's not going to put up 70 points a game as much fun for Longhorns fans as the OU game was. That he's not that good.
No, but he shows flashes of it, and maybe
they'll still score. They've got a good offense. They'll still score.
Yeah, was it Worthy? The receiver Xavier Worthing or Worthington or something like that. He's very good. So I think he'll be able to find him.
And they can still run all day long. They got so many.
Bijan Robinson. He's just
talk about Georgia and the tight ends. Texas has got some third string running back, probably be the best running back at 80% of the schools in the country.
Yeah. We're going to grab Stanford, man. I've been nailing the Stanford team all year. I don't think Washington State is going to get them by a touchdown. I think they're going to muck it up and stay close. And this might be a backdoor, or it may stay close the whole game, but I think Stanford will cover this number. They're going to grab UCLA. I think they're just going to take it to Arizona State. Arizona State's not got the defense, and DTR and Chardonnay are just an incredible 1-2 punch. And then when they throw the ball to Bobo, I think is the tight end, it's just finds ways to be open. I don't understand it. He's not overly athletic. He just figures it out.
Constantly waiting for that to get to 10. I'm waiting for it. But I might be waiting for a decade, but I'm waiting.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on it here, and that's all I've got.
All righty then. That's every game this week. Cousin Jared, any parting words?
Man, I'm telling you, Patreon really pays for itself. We got some good money line winners earlier this week. We had a breakdown about which Rourke brother was the better Ohio quarterback. We dove into
on the Discord,
who the active touchdown leaders are in NCAA right now. It's just a lot of value there. So make sure you come to Patreon and sign up.
If anybody's still watching now, of course, the people watching probably are already with us there. But before Game 3 of the World Series, we were talking about home runs. And I said, I think maybe some value on no home run, and talking about those are correlated. Once I didn't hit home runs, and if Lance wasn't hanging breaking balls, maybe he would have a lot of home runs. I said, but the one I'm really worried about is Bryce Harper. One of the members in there says, hey, Bryce Harper had the first home run at 1,000 plus 1,000, and nobody jumped on it, but it was there. It was right there for the taking, just to put like $10 on it, $5 on it, $1 on it, whatever. It was 10 to 1 odds. It was right there for us for the taking in the Discord.
It was just like Jake here picking the Kentucky Derby winner.
Exactly.
That happens every once in a while.
Exactly. Jake, any parting words from you?
No. I'm just so excited for Monday with basketball getting started. I'm just living the dream.
That makes one of us. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can ensure all the sports betting content we brought on this channel is dropped right into your feed. See you again next week for more college football content and college basketball. Apparently, that's a thing we're doing. But until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.